Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's me again. I'm going to make two or three little short videos this morning. It seems like the shorter ones are easier to make and quicker to upload. And I'm going to give you some lecture information for the week and talk about some other general midterm stuff. So this first one is for all three of my classes, my two English 1Bs and my one section of English 1A. We're coming up on midterms in a couple of weeks. There aren't any midterm exams in this class, so you don't need to worry about that. And in fact, I'm not required to enter midterm grades, but I usually do just for your benefit so you kind of know where you stand in the middle of the term. So you might want to go in and look under the My Grades button, which is on the class website, and there's a column there called GPA Grade Point Average, and that tells you where you stand right now in terms of percentage, and a letter grade is attached. Okay, so you'll be able to tell from that if you need to make any changes or if you're where you need to be or want to be. You can figure out what changes you need to make. Typically keeping with the rules of the definitions of insanity, unless something changes for you, unless something gets substantially better or substantially worse, that's where you're going to be, probably for the rest of the term, unless changes happen, either good or bad. In terms of your essays, I got overnight somewhat over 100 papers to grade. That's 100 papers to grade, yes. And I simply am not going to rush through those and do a poor job because I take that part of my work quite seriously. So, to tell you the truth, I may get them graded by the end of next week, and I may not. I will do my best, but I'm not going to make myself crazy, and I'm not going to shortchange you by rushing through them. So chances are where you are right now in that GPA is chances are where you're going to be in 2 weeks, and chances are, and like I said, unless something changes, where you are now, what you've been doing now, unless you change something, is probably what you're going to continue to do for the rest of the term. You've already set for yourself how things are going to go. So in terms of GPA, in case you're interested, I pulled up the stats on our classes. In the English 1A class, which has 29 students on the roster, 15 of those students have either a B or an A grade. So of 29, more than half of you guys are doing either well or extremely well. That's half the class. Okay? In the 1B section 1220, there are 23 students on that roster, and 13 of them are passing with a B or an A. So again, we're roughly half the class. Slightly more than half the class is doing well or extremely well. And in the 1B section 1368, which also has 23 students in it, 14 of you are pulling a B or an A. So half, again, in all three of my classes, half the students are doing well or extremely well. You're pulling a B or an A. So that tells me, the only thing of value to me is that tells me the class isn't too hard. In fact, if I were a believer in statistics and I was looking at those numbers, I'd say the class is too easy. Too many people are pulling high grades. But, I'm not a believer in statistics, so don't worry about that. You are where you are, and that's fine. We can deal with that. So, the fact that half your colleagues are doing well or extremely well says we're where we should be. So if you're not doing so well, then you should look at what you're doing or not doing, that's a result of those lower grades, and there are some people who haven't done anything. It's a result of choices you've made. And maybe you can make different choices and maybe you can't. That's not for me to judge. And I'm not going to preach at you about that. What is going to happen at midterm is I'm going to be dropping some folks who've been blowing off the forums week after week after week. You can take this however you want, but this is really much more about me than it is about you. When I see a student who's clearly going to fail the class, and has already set in motion that process of failure, I'm simply not going to be complicit in that process if I can avoid it. Because it comes down to the end of the term and I have to fail a student who hasn't really done much. I feel bad about that. I sometimes lose sleep over that. I worry about that and what that person will be doing in the world. And so I know it's dumb, but that's how I feel about it. So if a student is not doing the work, and by that I mean blowing off the forums week after week after week, then that person's going to go away so that I don't have to feel bad about failing that person at the end of the term. That's how it works. You can take it however you want, but that's how it works. So that's going to happen around midterms. I probably won't drop anybody else. I've warned a few people, and most of them have completely ignored my attempt to reach out to them. So I've done all I can. I'm probably not going to make any other moves until the end of next week, and then some folks are going to go away. And again, take it however you want. And I'm probably not even talking to the people who need to hear this speech, but there it is. Okay. So that's the end of this one. I'm going to stop, post this one, and then we'll come back and talk about some more specific things for the different sections. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye. Okay, here's number 2. Got several emails this week asking me to extend deadlines because people had had a hard week at work or, other stuff going on in their lives. So let me tell you a little story, and then I'll remind you of some things. But first, I'm going to very, very respectfully ask you not to send me those emails. Here's my story, and here's the reason. Here's my story. When I was in graduate school, I discovered that I simply could not go to school full time. I didn't have the resources. I had to work. And I had to work so much in order just to keep myself afloat that I simply didn't have the time to do my schoolwork to my standards. So I went to school half-time and worked at 2 and sometimes 3 part-time jobs all over in the Bay Area to make ends meet. It's what I had to do, and I didn't complain about it or anything else. So, but that was based on my rather remarkable discovery that I'm not Superman. There's only so much one human being can do. And my choices boil down to, as your choices boil down to, either trying to do a smaller number of things and doing them well to the best of my ability, or taking on a larger number of things than I was capable of, which guaranteed that none of them would be done well. That's the choice. And I wouldn't presume to make that decision for you. But I tell you, of the process of making the decision for myself, was discovering that I'm not Superman, that there are limits to what I can accomplish and accomplish well. And I did accomplish them well. I graduated from graduate school summa cum laude with a 4.0 GPA. But that was a result of choices I made about managing my life and my education, which is part of my life, and simply saying, you can't go to school full time. You don't have the resources. So what can you do and do well? You can go to school half-time, work about 3/4 time, and you can make it. Was it hard? Absolutely. Was it possible? Yes. Could I have gone to school full-time and worked full-time? Absolutely not. And I didn't even have a family. So, again, I'm not preaching at you, and I can't make these decisions for you. And that's why, because I'm sympathetic and because I understand and because I've been in your shoes more than once, I've built in several resources into the computation of grades in the class to allow you some control over this process. And I will say to you, some substantial control over this process. You have the ability to submit papers late. Yes, it comes at a cost. But folks, so does deciding that you're Superman and you can do everything. That comes at a substantial cost to health and everything else as well. So, nothing comes without a cost. So you could submit papers late. within the guidelines in the syllabus and pay the price, which is a small price. You can buy yourself a 1-week extension on most paper deadlines with the certificate I provided for you in the resources area. So when you send me an email asking me to bend the rules because you had a hard week at work, I'm totally sympathetic, but you're asking me to control the process in your favor and in exclusion of everybody else who may have had a hard week. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make those decisions. I'm not here to decide whether your excuse is valid and somebody else is not valid. I'm just not going to do that. So you have massive amounts of control over this process and how it works out for you. So please exercise your own control, and you'll find that things go much better for you. Okay? Again, I ask you respectfully not to send me those emails. It's not that I don't care. It's that there's only one answer. You know, that to be fair to everyone, the rules have to apply to everyone. And if you're asking me to start judging when I'm going to bend the rules in somebody else's favor, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Exercise the control you have, and everything will be fine. Okay, so that's the deal with late paper deadlines. Again, we've known this from day one, and I just wanted to remind you that you have more control in my class over the way this process works than any class I've ever had or ever taught. So celebrate that, use those resources, manage the process to the best of your ability, make the best choices you can, but remember, when you make a choice over here, you're probably not making a choice over here, or you're making a different choice over here. Don't ask me to do it for you. I can't. I'm not going to. Of course I could. I'm not going to, because it violates my own ethical stance vis-a-vis my job. Okay? Again, I really care about you guys. I love my students, but I'm not going to dance that dance. It's not fair to me. And I'm the person that it's not fair to when you ask me to do that. Okay, that's enough preaching. Have a great day. Get those papers in. Use the resources that are available to you. Bye.